If your child impulse buys, it's probably not about the toy. Most parents assume the problem is the item itself, the snack, the drink, the toy. But in my experience, that's almost never the real issue. Impulse spending usually has very little to do with what the child is asking for. It has everything to do with timing, emotion, and access. Once parents understand this, impulse spending usually stops feeling like a constant battle. Today, I want to help parents understand why children impulse buy, what's really happening in those moments, and what actually works to stop it. I'll be sharing this from a Singapore parent context and also from real experiences in my own family. So, if you are a parent trying to teach your child good money habits early and you find this kind of content useful, you can consider liking this video or subscribing to the channel. That is exactly the kind of conversations we have here. Many parents think impulse spending is a discipline problem. They think the child lacks self control, or that the child is greedy, or that the child has been spoiled. And because of that, parents often respond by saying no louder, explaining more, or feeling more frustrated. But impulse spending is usually not a discipline problem, it is a system problem. In almost every case that I've seen, impulse buying happens when three things appear together. The first, timing. The second, emotion. And the third is access to money. When all three are present, impulse takes over. Even when one is removed, impulse weakens. This is important because it tells us that we don't need perfect children. And to be honest, there is no such thing as a perfect child. We do need better systems. Let me share with you a real example from my own family. When my youngest was much younger, there was a time when we were out, and he insisted that we buy a drink for him. Now, the interesting part was this: we already had water. Drinking water is actually a habit in our family. It is for health reasons, and at the same time, we prefer to not spend money where we don't need to. So, this wasn't about us, and it definitely wasn't about need. It was simply a want that appeared in that moment. So, what did we do? Instead of immediately saying yes or no, my wife and I gave him alternatives. Firstly, we didn't dismiss him. Second, we didn't scold him. Third, we only offered options to him. And when he continued to insist, we told him, great, that's fine. We just explained one condition very, very clearly. If it was food or something necessary, we were prepared to pay. It is our duty as parents to feed you, that's for sure. But if it's something extra, an alternative has already been existing, then the money will not come from my wife and I. In fact, the money will come from him. And the interesting thing is, he didn't have an allowance because that was before he entered primary school. In fact, in the year 2026 is the year he entered primary one. Before this, he didn't have an allowance. So think about this. The moment he realized that he had to pay for it himself, the insistence stopped. Let that sink in. The second he realized that he had to pay for it using his own money, his insistence stopped. There was zero argument. There was no meltdown. He did tear, but he didn't melt down. There was no need for any long explanations. What did he choose? He just accepted the water and we moved on. It was really as simple as that. And this is actually the key point. This is the one thing I would like to drive home to all of us here. The behavior didn't change, and it didn't change because we argued better. It changed because those conditions actually change. So, over time, my wife and I realized something really important. The randoms no don't teach control. a predictable system actually do. So children don't need perfect parents. And again, to be perfectly honest, there is absolutely no such thing as a perfect parent. What the children do need are consistent boundaries. So in our home, impulse spending goes through three simple layers. The first layer, and the first rule is this: we don't buy things on the spot. We just don't buy things on the spot. When our child asks us for something, the first thing that we do, of course, is to acknowledge that they want it. But the first action that we take is we choose to walk out of the shop first. Once we step out of that very enticing area, then we ask our son, or in your case, it could be your child, do you still want it? Because when you're in that environment, it is just screaming at you to buy it. But when you remove yourself from that environment, the child may have a different answer, although based on my experience, there is not any difference yet. It may sound very simple for this, but it does work pretty well. So the distance does reduce that desire. And once the immediate stimulus is removed, the impulse could, and I use the keyword could, fade away on its own. So the first thing we do is we step out of the shop that is enticing us to actually buy that item. But the second rule is this: we use a 24-hour pause. And what is this 24-hour pause? In the blog, I have written about it. And the answer is we will wait for a 24-hour period. Yes, we do wait for one full day. And this pause does force upon itself a reflection. And what kind of reflection are we getting at? Here's the interesting part. Many children, and this is from my personal experience, many children completely forget about that item the following day. Now, let me just plead with all parents here. Please don't ask them if they still want that item. They have to tell you that they want it. They have to remember it. If they remember it, it means that they seriously, seriously want it. You don't go about reminding them about it, because I don't go reminding them about it. If they tell me about it, it means that they want it. So when that happens, the desire, we can tell that the desire was emotional and it was not intentional. But it doesn't mean that we immediately leave the house to go about taking it, because there is a third and final layer that we need to introduce. The third rule is ownership. Yes, after the 24-hour period, and if the child still wants the item, they must use their own money. So either the money that they already have in their savings jar, they got to use it, and then they will have to deploy that money to purchase that item. If they don't have it, then they will need to save up for it. Or alternatively, if they happen to have the ability to work and earn some kind of income from doing something, either in the house, which is additional from the chores, or from the neighbors whom they are willing to help out for an income, then that is the only way that the item is going to be bought. This links directly to how we teach budgeting. We use a system such as the save, the spend, and the give jars, or it doesn't have to be a jar, it can be an envelope or anything physical, for them to physically divide and set aside a purpose for an item. Once the children feel the cost personally, that's when their decision making changes. Ownership does change behavior. So we're going to talk about the part that parents don't like admitting. Most parents don't give in because they're weak. And to be honest, I'm not bashing parents. I am one myself, and I do give in to my children from time to time. We don't give in to our children purely because we're weak. We give in to them because we're human, and humans are emotional. Sometimes I give in because I love my children, and it shows itself from me giving in. Sometimes I give in because of other reasons. In my experience, parents give in for two main reasons. And maybe I speak from experience for this. You may or may not disagree. The first one is fatigue. After a long day of work, or after standing for hours teaching or facilitating, that is exactly the kind of work that I go through. I teach, I facilitate, I conduct workshops. The energy drops. And that is when our guard goes down. Our defenses go down when our energy drops. And when that happens, we might give in. So that's the first one. The second one is public embarrassment, and I am extremely guilty of this. So children, being children, they tend to throw tantrums when they don't get their ways, and this usually happens when they are way younger. And I have to say that there were times whereby I feel publicly embarrassed. I don't know whether this is because I'm Asian or this is something that I culturally feel in my country. I come from Singapore, but the feeling of embarrassment because my child is misbehaving is something I personally have issues with. So because of that, the public embarrassment causes me to give in to my child. Tantrums in public are really difficult for me. And within Asian context, losing face is really, really real. So in those moments, I give in. And I give in because it feels like it is the fastest way out. Kids don't test rules. They sometimes test our energy levels, and our patience generally goes down when it is really, really low. The uncomfortable truth is adults impulse spend as well. Online shopping. I go on my mobile phone a ton. I go on shopping avenues online a ton, and I do purchase things online. Occasionally, I also buy food from food delivery services. Many of the youth these days also have buy now, pay later schemes. Sometimes we do it because we're tired. Sometimes we do it because it is convenient. I am definitely guilty of this as well. And children do notice this. Don't think that our children are just passive observers. They are actually active observers all the time. They do observe, and most of the time, they mimic what we do. Children notice this long before they participate in this. They don't learn money habits from lectures, they actually learn from the actions that we as parents take. So, for all of us out there, for parents, if impulse spending feels like a constant struggle at home, please don't start by shouting louder. That often leads to strained relationships. And the main purpose of this channel is to not just build strong financial literacy in the children, but it's also to build a strong money sense and strong family ties together as a family itself. So do begin by starting to look at the timing, look at the emotion, and look at the excess. Once you control these three things, you will be able to control the spending, and the impulse spending will then stop being a battle.